3, 2, 1!
So welcome once again to another episode of Scott Talks Law. So this is an episode whereby Scott talks law. And in this episode, we're going to talk about trade unions under labor law. So trade unions are organizations that are formed to fight for the rights of employees. So Section 2 of the Labor Relations or Regulations Act defines that trade unions as an association that is formed to regulate the employer-employee relationship or the relationship of employer organization and the employee. So these trade unions are the ones that fight for the employees' rights. So in normal terms, an employer was seen to be superior to the employee, and in normal circumstances generally, an employer is always superior to the employee. So that an employee to fight for their rights, for employees to fight for their rights, these employees have to form an organization or get himself into certain organization that is not dependent on their ranks or positions, but on the commonality or the community of interest. So these organizations that are formed depend on the community or the commonality of interest. And before an organization and a trade union organization is formed, first of all, someone must understand the social basis of organization. And this social basis of organization is based on the commonality and the community of interest. That if at all you have a certain interest that you want to fulfill as a community, as common employees, then you have the right to form a trade union organization. So a trade union organization cannot exist unless that organization is registered. And for registration of a trade union, an application shall be made to a certain institution, and there's a certain institution that consists of a registrar, deputy registrar, and assistant registrar and other members. So application for the registry shall be made to that institution for registration. And after registration, you shall obtain a certificate that shall approve that you are ready to run as an organization after meeting the legal requirements that are required. And if the name of that trade union, there is no other name that exists apart from the one which you intend to obtain a certification from. And this certificate can be withdrawn or revoked if it was obtained by fraud after being given a mistake or misrepresentation, and if it was the organization runs in any other unlawful activities other than those activities that were stated in the application. So this organization is supposed to run and work and champion for employees' rights, but not be a political centered union. A trade union must not champion for political things, but only matters to do with the employees. So these trade unions has a very wide history, and they emerged in Europe, and they were imported in Kenya during 1937. And at that time, colonial government was really brutal to workers, and that one forced workers to form organizations that championed as a movement that championed for their rights. So during that time, when colonial government existed, they really encouraged investors to come and invest in Africa, in Kenya, not because Kenya was full of laborers, but because they viewed laborers to be docile, and they were just supposed to be brutalized. So that caused the emergence of trade unions around 1937. So during the 1930s, there was that there was a certain ordinance that we are going to look at. This ordinance was formed to regulate trade unions and to limit trade unions. So during 1937 was that movement that of workers, of laborers, and during 1940 is where there was demonstrations by various associations in the streets and towns for the rights of workers. So at that time, colonial government was really harsh, and together with because these movements were interfering with the colonial government's work and in the effective running of the government. So there was need of that labor ordinance, that ordinance to be there to limit this trade union organization, and this ordinance prevented registration of unions that were not to fight for work, that were they only allowed non-political organization and prevented organization that were to champion for political activities rather than fighting for the rights of employees. So Section 14 to 15 of the Labor Relations Act provides for the procedure for the registration of trade unions, and we're going to look at those certain procedures for registration of these trade unions. And we also have the laws that govern these trade unions, and these are the Labor Relations Act and the Constitution of the trade unions that limits that member, provides for the members that or governs the members that are there under in that particular trade union. Limits those particular members. The trade union must have a constitution for it to be established, and it must have a certain postal address or office for it to be established, and it must have made application according to the act so that it can receive the certificate, and there must be no other trade union other than the one that is being intended to be created, and it must be for the legal and lawful basis for running that organization. So these trade unions, after receiving, they have certain powers that are prescribed after, but that they have the powers to be sued. They have some certain powers and immunity. So these trade unions have immunity from tortious liabilities and civil liabilities and wrongs after being registered, and they have also the power, they can be sued and they can sue and be sued. They have power to sue and to be sued, and they can also be dissolved. So after the certain time that was there for that trade union to exist according to the constitution of that particular trade union, then that trade union can come to an end. And during the dissolution of a trade union, the registrar must be notified within 14 days that that trade union is sent to be dissolved, and that dissolution must be signed by 7 members of the trade union. So after receiving the application for registration, the registrar shall issue a certificate within 13 days for that partial registration. There are 2 types of registration. You have the substantive registration and that partial registration. So a certificate for registration will be issued within 30 days that confirms that that union organization has been fully registered. If it does not meet the requirements, then that certificate cannot be issued. So that is about the trade unions. So after the registrar shall notice in the Kenya Gazette and the national daily newspaper with wide circulation notify that any registered trade unions to submit any written anything within the period specified. So the registrar can notify if there's any written information that is required to be submitted before the registry, and that information is important. It can be that information is important. So the registrar shall do this through the Kenya Gazette or any other newspaper magazine. So so Section 14 provides for the requirements for registration, as I've said, and you must have prepared an application within the act. You must have adopted your own constitution of that trade unions, and you must comply with the requirements of the act, and you must have a certain office with the postal address and no other trade union that is in existence. So those are the requirements of registration under Section 14, and the certificate specifies that this trade union is legally or lawful to run activities that are lawful, and an application for substantive registration shall be made to the registrar within 6 months after the date of the issuance of certificate. So that is everything about trade unions. It's just an organization to fight for the rights of workers and to champion for the rights of employment. So in England, trade unions really face a lot of challenges, and it was needful in the 19th century for these organizations to be formed because they provided for the working conditions and of workers during work. So they fought for the workers' conditions of work, and these organizations also provided training to the employees. So this trade union organization. So that is the end of my episode, and stay in touch, subscribe for more episodes, like, share, comment. So that is the end, and have a nice day.